a rich culture, a rich tradition, and an even richer history. The Pueblo people of New Mexico have survived against all odds. Descendants of the ancient Anasazi Empire, which at its height, in my opinion, would have rivaled the Aztec, the Inca, and the Mayan empires. The Pueblo people are still here today. They survived the Spanish conquest, they survived the Mexican Revolution, and then later the Mexican government. Then they survived the Anglo-Americans who called themselves settlers, who moved into their land and stole it. Not to mention the nomadic tribes who attacked them, the Navajo, the Ute, the Comanche, the Apache. And they're still surviving today under the American government. So the Pueblo people's ancestors are the ancient Anasazi. Now the Anasazi are people that we really don't know much about. They ruled from about AD 100 till about 1300, so over 1,000 years. We do know that they abandoned their pueblos, Mesa Verde, Pueblo Bonito, Chaco Canyon. They abandoned all these pueblos and moved south. Now the Anasazi had to have been a nice-sized empire in its time. Because if you look at Mesa Verde, Chaco Canyon, Pueblo Bonito, and other places that they used to dwell at, their old stomping grounds, and if you look at all their artifacts and stuff, you could tell that they were big. Look at how they built their cliffs. They built apartment-like buildings, apartment-like structures into the cliff walls. Anyway, like I said, we don't know much about the Anasazi. We know about the time that they ruled. We know they're the ancestors to the Pueblos, and we know that they abandoned all their Pueblos. We don't really know the reason why. Most historians, best guess, including me, would guess that they abandoned their Pueblos due to fighting with the Navajos and the Apaches or whatever other nomadic tribes were around at that time, as well as during the time that they left, around 1300 AD, was a time of great movement in the Southwest. So they might have been getting ran into by other cultures too, which forced them out. Maybe there was wars. There was also drought, famine in the land. So all these reasons could have been the reasons why they left. They left their old empire behind and they moved south and built a new one. The word Anasazi comes from a Navajo word. It means ancient enemy. Some of the Navajos today don't like using that word because of the negative connotation, so they just call them ancestral Puebloans. But the Anasazi are the ancestral Puebloans. The ancestral Puebloans are the Anasazi. Anasazi is a Navajo word for ancient enemies. That tells me that they used to fight with the Navajo. The Navajo and the Anasazi used to fight with each other. Anyway, eventually the Anasazi moved south and built these pueblos. They built Taos Pueblo, Picuris Pueblo, all the pueblos down along the Rio Grande to Isleta. In between Taos and Isleta, there was anywhere between 70 to 100 pueblos. Of course, that was before the Spanish conquest. After the Spanish conquest, there's only 19 left. Fun fact, the Spanish conquistadores were the first to name them pueblos. Pueblo just means town or village in Spanish. But as I mentioned before the Spanish conquest, there was anywhere between 70 to 100 pueblos. Now there are only 19 left. The reason the number varies between 70 to 100 is because I read so many different things about the Pueblos. Some people place them at 70, some at 75, some up to 100. So I just say there was anywhere between 70 to 100 Pueblos. Now there only remain 19. So that much Pueblos they went extinct. Pecos Pueblo, Pottery Mound Pueblo. There's a lot of Pueblos that are just ruins now. You could go visit them. The most famous that I visited before is Pecos Pueblo. Disease, war, conquest. These are the main things that obliterated the Pueblos. The Pueblo people built apartment-like structures using adobe, which is a mixture of earth, straw, and water. After you mix the earth and the straw and the water, you sit it out in the sun and it gets sun-baked and it dries and it makes it clay. That's how they built their houses, their Pueblos. Deer, elk, rabbit, these are just some of the things that they hunted for and ate. They would farm corn and cotton mostly, as well as some beans and squash. Even though all the Pueblos are descended from the Anasazi, each Pueblo individually has its own laws, its own governance. Each Pueblo individually is its own sovereign nation. Still to this day, each Pueblo is considered its own sovereign nation. So even though the Pueblos are under the United States federal government, each Pueblo is its own sovereign nation. The Pueblos speak 4 different languages: Tiwa, Tewa, Towa, and Keres. The Pueblo people also have kivas, which they meet in to make important decisions, which they pray in and have ceremonies in, where they worship. So a kiva was both a place of ceremony and worship and a place to make important decisions where the council will meet, talk, discuss whatever they had to discuss at the time. The Pueblo people practice what is called the Kachina religion or Kachina religion. Now this is something that I don't want to go into. I don't want to explain as a non-native, as a Hispanic person, because I don't know much about it and I don't want to teach it wrong. So I don't want to explain the Kachina religion, but what I can say and what I have learned that I think wouldn't be inappropriate would be to say that the Kachinas are like intermediaries between the people and the gods. And they're really sacred. So Kachina dolls, those things are real and they're really sacred to the natives. They're not supposed to be sold. Unfortunately, Zuni Pueblo sells them. So after the Spanish conquest, Catholicism, the Catholic religion, integrated into the native religion and it kind of mixed. But they still practice their Kachina religion to this day. So the way that historians divide the Pueblos into two regions, I guess we could say. You have the Rio Grande Pueblos and the Western Pueblos. The Western Pueblos are Zuni, Acoma, Laguna, and Hopi. But Hopi, I'm not sure if that's even a Pueblo, because out of the 19 Pueblos of New Mexico listed, Hopi's not one of them. But Laguna, Acoma, Zuni, and Hopi are the Western Pueblos. All the rest are the Rio Grande Pueblos. The Pueblo people are exclusively in New Mexico. Some of the Hopi Pueblo goes into Arizona, which used to be part of New Mexico. But other than that, all the Pueblos are in New Mexico. So the Pueblo people are exclusively in New Mexico. And maybe that's why the Hopi isn't listed on the list of 19 Pueblos. So the 19 Pueblos of New Mexico are Acoma, Cochiti, Isleta, Jemez, Laguna, Nambe, Ohkayowingue, Picuris, Pojoaque, Sandia, San Felipe, San Ildefonso, Santa Ana, Zia, Taos, Santa Clara, Santo Domingo, Tesuque, and Zuni. So I'm going to be doing studies of each of these Pueblos in the future. So this video here was just to talk about and tell you guys who the Pueblo people are. The Pueblo people of New Mexico, who they are, who they came, just a little summary of the Pueblo people. But I'm going to be taking a deeper dive into each one of these Pueblos, all 19 of them, and I'll do a video about each one individually. So if you're interested in the Pueblo people of New Mexico, if you want to learn more about their history, each individually, subscribe to my channel, click the notification bell, all that. And when I make the videos in the future and they come out, you'll be notified. I'm also going to be making my New Mexico history videos about other New Mexico history things, so stay tuned. So when historians are studying and telling about the Pueblo people, they categorize them into 6 time periods, so that way they can understand who they're talking about. There's the Late Basket Maker 2, which covers the time period between AD 100 and 500. There's the Late Basket Maker 3, AD 500 to 750. Pueblo 1, AD 750 to 950. Pueblo 2, AD 950 to 1150, Pueblo 3, AD 1150 to 1300, and Pueblo 4, AD 1300 to 1600. Now most of the Pueblos I'll be talking about are Pueblo 3 and Pueblo 4 Pueblos. Most of them are Pueblo 4. There'll be a couple that are Pueblo 3. But none of that matters, don't let that confuse you. I just had to throw that fact in there. And if you want to learn more about New Mexico, the history, the culture, the traditions, the symbology, the legends, subscribe to my channel. This is Tragedy. I hope you learned something new. Thank you for watching. I'm out.